What up, what up, what up? We are back with another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. I am not Matt Anderson, but I am here with sports guy Rye, Mr. Ortega, and Myles Gorham. We may have a special appearance from Flip Mozzie a little bit later on. But before we get going, I always got to remember this so that Matt doesn't yell at me when he watches this later on. We are sponsored by That's Badass Wood, Lake Monster Brewing, and Eastside Jiu-Jitsu. All right. Whew. All that out of the way. Myles, my man.
What up?
How you doing? How you been?
Good.
And
good.
Let the folks know what you've been up to, because you've added some new things to your sports talk repertoire. What you been up to, man, and what you got going on?
Yeah, I just started yesterday with Score North doing a Purple Dailies on draft with Tyler Fornes and Declan Goff. So really excited about that, and excited to be joining them weekly to talk, young Vikings players, rookies, second-year players, and then talk about the draft and looking ahead. So excited to be doing that on Mondays every week.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, guess we'll put you right to work right away. Then we'll get Ryan in here. Let's talk about the game. We're talking about young Vikings players. And there was kind of football on last week. It was on late, but the Vikings played. So, what were your main takeaways? Who impressed you? Who maybe didn't impress you so much? But especially with the young guys, what really stood out for you in the game against Seattle?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I fell asleep in the third quarter, and I woke up and the game was over. But the first half, I thought Nick Mullins actually was pretty impressive. He started the game and played the whole first half. I thought he had a good command of the offense. I just thought he maneuvered well and kind of ran the offense the way a backup's supposed to. I know there's always this hesitation. Ryan was really high on Nick Mullins last year, but I think we all have our reservations about backup quarterbacks in general. But I thought he played well, and I thought he kind of showed exactly why he's the backup over the rookie Jaren Hall, and I just thought he had, like I said, had a really good command of everything going on, and hit the receivers and hit his checkdowns. Did everything that you'd want out of a backup quarterback in a preseason game.
Awesome. Flip, welcome. And Myles, you're not alone. Look at that. Mary fell asleep too, so you're in good company. All right, Ryan, how about you? Did you stay up for the whole thing?
Yeah, I think I made a little longer than Myles, maybe 10 minutes, 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I dozed off a little bit, woke up with a minute left. So I didn't get to see all of the Jaren Hall snaps.
Oh, you saw the most exciting stuff, that the last minute of the game?
Yeah. I don't even know if I even watched it. I was so tired at that point. But no, there's a few good things and a few things I guess you can consider it concerning, I guess. But one of the positives I'll talk about is Ty Chandler. I thought that although it's not like he ran for a great yards per carry average or anything like that, I want to say it was just a hair under 4, I want to say. But he looks springy and spry in the pass game. He made a couple of key third down conversions for us and kept the drive moving along. So and making people miss. So he looked he looked really fresh, and he just looked like he was springy. It's probably the best word I could use. So which should be a good compliment to Alexander Mattison if we don't end up bringing in somebody to kind of take that third down type role. From the, I guess, slight concern, I wouldn't even consider it a concern, but watching Lewis Cine, what's refreshing about what I saw from him is he was there. He was there. He was making the play. He was there to make the play. He didn't always finish the play, but he was there to slow the guy down, whatever. Unfortunately, he just got trucked 3 times. And he's coming out of college, this guy is supposed to be the guy laying the wood. He's the guy that's supposed to be knocking dudes out, and he's dipping his head. Again, I think if you look over at Luke Braun, he did a nice little clip of it on Twitter where he showed where, yeah, he's right there to make the play. Sure, he didn't make the tackle. He didn't finish the play himself, but he also kept that guy from getting another 4, 5, 6 yards, right? He was there to allow the backers to come and finish the tackle. You wish he'd make the tackle, but that's okay. I'm happy to see him in the game, happy to see that he was healthy, and hopefully he can start finishing those plays going forward.
Flip. It wasn't as late for you. I mean, you get the benefit, West Coast. So like,
yeah, but he's on baby dad sleep, so that might be a little different. He's either he's either wide awake or he's dead tired.
Actually, it was the opposite. I had to tune out the first quarter because the Seahawks announcers were just absolute trash, man. Absolute trash, y'all. So when they had some technical difficulties, and I'm not sure whether that's what happened or whether NFL Network just gave them the hook. That's when I started tuning in. Saw some good plays from Nick Mullins, Ty Chandler, like Myles and Ryan had said. I think all the standouts from that game have probably been, we've reached consensus on. People really liked Jordan Addison, his limited play. That it was great to see him. Nice Johnny Munt highlight. People really liked Najee Thompson on special teams. So all those, same guys stood out for me.
Who did anyone stand out for you in a negative way? Was there anyone that you were looking at there and initially after the game, it was like, the 2022 draft class was catching a lot of flack. Folks were really, really hot on Andrew Booth, Lewis Cine, missing plays, things like that. Those were like the initial immediate highlights because that's a talk track people have. It was priors being confirmed. Like, I told you these guys were bad. Look at the game. They're out there getting roasted. They're missing plays. They're doing all these things. And so I'm just curious from your perspective, either live or maybe, going back, watching some stuff again, looking at some highlights. Are you in line with kind of where the talk is of like, oh my God, it's looking like the top of Kwesi's first class is going to be terrible? Or are you feeling like folks are overreacting and, the guys just need some reps?
With the picks, I mean, Lewis Cine, Andrew Booth, I think obviously if you're expecting draft studs from those two guys, then that's not what you're getting. Overall, I think we can say we're all okay with the 2022 draft class. Sure, Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth aren't at the top of the depth chart, but you've got Ed Ingram, you've got Ty Chandler now, you've got a Caleb Evans all come into play. So that's really encouraging overall. So even if you think Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth are bust, you cannot call that draft a bad draft after watching that preseason game because we saw those other second-year players, those other sophomores play well. Now I'm not going to skirt the question. Lewis Cine, he's not where you want him to be. I think he has a tough hill to climb. But I also am kind of happy with the safety room because Josh Metellus looks so good, because Cam Bynum seems to actually be coming along. I would love to say, look, we got Harrison Smith, we got Lewis Cine starting on day one, but having Cam Bynum and Josh Metellus right there, Lewis Cine, just the idea that he can continue to recover from injury and pick up a complex scheme, be ready to go by week 6 or 8, even as a rotational player, that's a win for the Minnesota Vikings defense. And that's something that he can grow into, long-term throughout the rest of his rookie contract. Andrew Booth, probably the bigger issue, but again, the fact that we have a Caleb Evans, we have Mekhi Blackman showing out. If Andrew Booth can make it, he needs more time than he should as a second-round draft pick, 100%. He needs more time than he should. But I'm not giving up on him, and I really like him as a 4th or 5th corner in that Vikings defense.
Awesome. So Flip just mentioned Ed Ingram. So Ryan, I'd like to get your thoughts because Ed Ingram was another one, got out there, got some run. PFF didn't love what happened. And if you're looking at kind of how he stacks up with all the other Vikings O-line who got a little bit of run, it's not great. So based on what you saw from Ed Ingram, Ryan, I guess, how are you feeling about that pick or that player, maybe not the pick necessarily? Maybe the pick was good process, but the player, the development, what you're seeing, and like what you're hoping to see in terms of development from Ed Ingram as we continue in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that he can pick it up. Obviously, he struggled a bit in both facets of the offense, unfortunately, and we did bring in Dalton Reisner at one point to kind of get a look-see and see what he's got. Not to say that Dalton Reisner is going to be the savior. He definitely struggled and had his struggles last year as well. But, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe bring in another guy or two as friendly competition. As you remember, he was going against second team defense. Ed Ingram was last week. So it's a bit concerning that he wasn't holding his own, specifically because it was that second team. But, you're going to give him a little bit of a pass. It's the first live game action that he's had in quite a few months. So hopefully he gets a little bit more comfortable. And again, he's playing with different guys, right? Austin Schlottman and was it Oli Udoh, I think. So he's not playing with, Brian O'Neill and Garrett Bradbury, which again are significant upgrades on both sides of him, which then in turn would likely make him play a little bit better as well. So hopefully when he gets a bit more familiarity around him, he'll show it a little bit better. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought in a guy like Dalton Reisner or another, free agent to bring in for some competition if he continues to struggle.
I think what bothers me the most about that, Ryan, is like we talked about this like with Laquan Treadwell back when when he was with the Vikings early on. And I'm not saying Ed Ingram's going to be Laquan Treadwell where he's going to phase out completely, but I think there's still room to grow and be a solid player. But what bothered me is, like, even back then the Vikings didn't bring anybody in to be true competition for him. Like, because he didn't prove anything in year one. And I think Ed Ingram, I know he started all 17, 18 games, you include the playoffs. He didn't do enough to show, he didn't do enough, clearly enough to not bring in at least competition for him to, push him. Like, even if Ed Ingram's going to win that job or they're going to just give him that job, you still need to have somebody in there pushing these interior linemen so that, if things are going to go sideways, you have somebody that can come in and step in. And I think it bothers me a little bit that they literally brought nobody. Chris Reed's been out, and they literally had to move Blake Brandel into guard, which is in his position. And again, I'm not saying it has to be a Dalton Reisner. I just think it needs to be somebody that has NFL experience that they could bring in to at least be depth, in competition. And I think that just bothers me a little bit and I don't think the whole conversation about Reisner is only about Ed Ingram. I think it's about Ezra Cleveland too. And I also think about the fact that their depth at the interior line is just that bad, and Reisner is clearly the best offensive guard available. And why wouldn't you want to at least pursue that opportunity, or at least see if there's something there if he's willing to come in a backup role? So I don't know. I'm just a little frustrated with how the Vikings have handled that position heading into the season. If this is truly a competitive rebuild, not just a rebuild, right?
You wouldn't do it because it's a waste of cash. I mean, yeah, you're just gonna throw out your third round right guard in there and hope he's good enough to hold his own. That's just what the NFL is when you've got a bunch of athletes, of veterans to pay at other spots, a bunch of upcoming extensions. So look, Ed Ingram, he struggled in 12 snaps I think he played.
I don't even think he was that bad. I don't think he was as bad as people are giving him.
He wasn't even that bad. And if Ed Ingram completely sucks this year and we have a bad right guard and no competition for him, I'm fine with that. I would not start Dalton Reisner unless somebody gets injured.
No, I'm flip. I'm not saying it has to be Dalton Reisner. Yeah. I'm also not saying they need to bring in somebody to replace Ed Ingram. I'm saying they need to bring somebody in as a fallback plan, because you can't just, because of how he played last year, you can't just guarantee that he's going to be better or be a quality player. That's all I'm saying. I think they should continue to give him the chances. I have zero issues with that. But I think you just need to have somebody that has somewhat proven track record behind him, behind both the guards, in my opinion. Not just Ezra Cleveland hasn't proven so much that he's a non-replaceable player. I think he's a replaceable level guard at this point too. So I just don't so that's my biggest gripe. It's not that I think they should be just kind of giving up on Ed Ingram. I don't think that at all. I think they should just bring in somebody that has a little bit more experience.
Well, and again, competition, makes the best out of everyone, right? So if we bring in, we'll just keep using Reisner as the example, since he's the best free agent guard.
Well, he's the only one they've been linked to.
That too. If you bring in a Reisner, that doesn't mean he's coming in to replace Ed Ingram, but also Ed Ingram doesn't have anyone on his tail right now. Chris Reed, is he somebody that Ed Ingram should be scared of? No. Right. So we need somebody to come in and really push Ed Ingram to, make him be scared for his job, I guess, in a sense. Obviously I don't want to be scared for it, but you got to play up to that starting position, and competition breeds the best out of all of us. So I think that would be good to bring in somebody as a fallback option, as somebody to kind of push these guys to be the best versions of themselves.
100%. And shout out to Dan
up,
and
Dan?
everybody else who just came in. Flip.
Hey, and appreciate Justin too. Appreciate you saying congrats. So I appreciate that.
Flip, question for you. As you often are the one who maybe brings us down a little bit, we tend to get caught up in the hype. We get real excited about stuff, and you often just tell us to slow it down. During the game, on Twitter, after the game, Ivan Pace was basically getting suited up for the Hall of Fame already. You know, the highlights that folks were seeing had everyone really excited. But then afterwards, you know, again, you know, not saying Pro Football Focus is the end all be all, but like the grade didn't match up with the highlights and the talk online. And so I'm looking for your perspective from what you saw. Where does the truth lie? Is it like in the middle of those? Which side of this are you on in terms of where Ivan Pace is at and his chances to live up to, you know, this preseason hype that we're getting right now?
I mean, the game was great. I think what's cooler about the Ivan Pace story is that he's been balling out all camp. Harrison Smith is making comments about him, about his playing with his hair on fire. I haven't looked at a PFF grade in 2 years, so I can't really tell you what they said or how that means. All I'm saying is I'm a fan, and we noticed Ivan Pace on Thursday, right? We saw him play. It was fun to watch, and he made plays, and he helped us get off the field. So if there's anything to be kind of hesitant about, it is the fact that, look, you know, it is a preseason game. He was going against second string, so there is going to be an uphill climb. But I think just the prospect of having another linebacker next to Jordan Hicks, next to Brian Asamoah, another rotational piece. They're going to be using, you know, the big three safety look. They're going to be using a vast array of linebackers and edge rushers, and having Ivan Pace come in, even if it is just as a depth piece, I think is really cool. We should be excited about it as much as we want.
Love it. Love it. And then Myles, I want to bring it around to you. Can't believe we made it this long into the show without talking about Jordan Addison, but you know, limited snaps. Look good with him, but like, what were the things that really stood out for you? I know that you got yelled at the other day on the internet for calling a rookie crafty, savvy, excuse me,
yeah.
with his route running. So maybe don't use that language. But if there was anything else that you saw out there that stood out for you when you were watching Jordan Addison,
yeah, I mean, he did what you kind of expected. I mean, I guess what you'd hoped him to do as a first round pick, but he's just so smooth. Like I think everything he does, he's just. His route running is an ability to understand leverage. I think is just, especially for a guy that's not very big and a guy that doesn't really have big hands. He's got really good hands. And I'm not saying having big hands is the only reason people have good hands, but like his ability to catch the ball away from his body, his ability to just catch and hold on to the ball. It's really impressive. And I think that toe tap catch that they called a no catch, I was hoping O'Connell was just going to throw the flag just because like, it's a preseason, like it definitely was, and it was a cool ass catch. And I was kind of just hoping you just to do it, you know, just for that case. But put him on ice, man. Like let's see Addison how he does in the scrimmage, like in the scrimmages this week against Tennessee, and I think what is it next week against Arizona. Like let him do those practices, but that man doesn't need to play in the preseason no more. Like there's no point in it because of these scrimmages. But I think he's also just shown that like I think he's ready to have an impact early on. Like right away. And so I think they should just keep phasing him into the offense. And I've been impressed with how he's been able to, he put himself into a really bad situation right before camp, you know, with the driving situation and all that. But I think he's bounced back really well from that because some guys might've taken a little bit and they kind of might've let it affect them a little bit and get in their heads. And I think he's done a good job of just speeding past it if we're going to go with that. So I just think he's looked really good. And even the day I went out to practice, you could just see it. You could see how well he moves. And I love his competition between him and Mekhi Blackman, just because I think those two are they're two young guys that are just continuing to compete with each other, trying to get better. So I was just really excited about it.
What up, Freddie Clifford? How y'all doing? Okay. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit here, unless anyone else has any other like really like super hot takes for like preseason Game 1, no. Okay, good. Ryan, TJ Hockenson, where are you at on the conspiracy theory rankings with TJ? Is it as a hold in? Is it an ear infection? Is it an injury? Where are we at with this? What do you think is going to happen? When is the announcement of the contract going to be, or is this something that's going to drag out through the rest of the offseason?
Yeah, I'm you know me, I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart, so I definitely think there's something fishy going. No, not fishy, but I think it's coming, and I do think that suddenly that ear infection might clear up quite quickly, and that balance will return for him as soon as that contract's signed. It's that pen that he's waiting to get in his hand to kind of balance himself out.
Apparently the golf links are calling him too, and he feels good out there. So, hey, man.
Well, everyone feels better on the golf course. I mean, that's just facts. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think they're close. I'm sure they're close. I don't know. This is complete speculation. I don't have any inside information. I'm not no insider, but I have a good feeling. My crystals are telling me that we're gonna get a contract here soon, and I think it's gonna. Probably one. I know, Flip, we talked about this a couple weeks back. I think it's going to be one that's going to potentially reset the market or get very close to. I know that he's not the best tight end in.
You think
football.
So?
I think it's going to be. I think that's what he's waiting. I think that's why it's delayed as much as it has been, is because he's waiting for it to get close to. I'm not saying it's going to remain that way, but I think he's going to be getting paid top 2, top 3 tight end money for sure. And he might reset the market just because, it's not like Travis Kelce's on a very new contract. He's on a very old one. Right? Mark Andrews is year 2.
Why are we talking about these guys in the same sentence with TJ Hockenson?
I'm just saying, there are players that reset the market all the time who are not the best at their position.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Like, and I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying we should do it. I'm saying that's what happens in the NFL. There's plenty of players who are at the top of the mark, who are the best at their position, who are not the highest paid because they reset the market 3 years ago in a 5-year contract. And then so they wait for these guys to get paid so they can reset it again. So my guess is TJ is going to get probably somewhere north of 15. And then that's going to be the bar for Travis and for George and the rest of those guys.
Flip, you seem to have feelings about this statement. You're shaking your head. You're upset. What's going on? What about what Ryan just said doesn't sit right with you, or what do you disagree with? Or maybe you just don't think the Vikings should pay him that much. I guess what's on your mind right now?
I don't understand why we're so attached to this dude who's played 8 games for the Minnesota. We're acting like he's the second coming of Kyle Rudolph. No, I'm just joking. But even Kyle Rudolph is a guy who we talked about because we had loyalty to him, not because he was like the best tight end in football. And TJ Hockenson it's not about ranking. It's about tiers. He is not in the top tier of tight ends in football. Over the
last half of last season, he ranked right up there.
Yeah, for 8 games. I guess the Detroit Lions are winning the Super Bowl then, because over the last half of last year, they were the best team in football. I mean,
maybe you just needed the right team to unlock his potential. They always say the tight end is drafted for the second team, not the first.
Well,
team.
The right team went out and they paid a blocking tight end, and they drafted a receiver that looks great while TJ sits out with an ear infection. Look, what happened? How are we still having this conversation? Years ago, Anthony Barr was waiting a new contract. He took 2 days off of practice to go get an insurance policy to make sure that he could still play and practice without fear of getting injured because he had that insurance policy. Does TJ Hockenson not have an insurance policy to make sure he's protected during this time? Like, get on the field, because every time this offense has stepped out onto the practice field or the real field without TJ Hockenson, they look pretty good. The continuity message about all 5 offensive linemen in year 2 of O'Connell's system, in year 2 with Chris Cooper, the offensive line coach, they look pretty good. Year 2, Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell's system looks pretty good. Jordan Addison looks pretty good. The run game with Alex Madison and Ty Chandler looks pretty good. So TJ Hockenson, it's time for you to decide, are you even going to practice? Or do you think you're some type of Travis Kelce megastar who's going to just walk onto the field week 1 and you're going to be what, the number 2 target in this offense?
He was last year. He didn't play at all with us, and he got like 11 targets.
He took a week off.
He got 11 targets his first game with us, 1 week into the system.
After he took a week off. So let him do that with Jordan Addison and the renewed commitment to the run game. If that's what we got to do, let him do it.
Can we? So one thing I want to make sure, like, we don't know if this is why TJ's out. Like, he said he has like an ear infection, all that, the equilibrium stuff. I don't know all the details, but it sounds like he's had an infection. So I'm not going to just sit here and be like, oh, that infection is like fake, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to also pretend like we know that he's only doing this because of the contract either. Like, we don't know that. So I don't want to villainize isn't the right word, but I don't want to like make him out to be a guy that we don't know, because we don't know. Like, he could just actually be sick, and like that's why he's sitting out. And I'm
right, but he's not the caliber of player that we should be talking about this type of stuff with. Like, I
agree. He shouldn't.
If Ezra Cleveland had an ear infection and was awaiting a contract, nobody'd be like, "Oh no, why is he doing it?" Tight end.
Bro, one thing I will say though is I don't think Kwesi's gonna let him reset the market. I don't see Kwesi being that type, because I think there's looking at the tight end landscape right now, I think there are too many players within like the TJ Hockenson like tier that have gotten extensions recently, and it'd be really hard to give TJ more than those guys. Like, you see where Dallas Goedert, Mark Andrews, like those guys sit at the 14, right around the $14 million range, in that 35 to 37 million total in total guarantees. That sits perfect to me with where TJ should be. Like, as you project forward too, like those guys got those types of deals. And if TJ's looking for more, there's no way you're getting much more. Like, maybe if you want to get like 100,000 more just to say you got more than those guys, great. But like,
didn't Kyler Murray do that?
Literally
100,000 more.
Yeah, like something like that, right? Like if that's the case, to get it over the top, fine. But him resetting the market, he's not better than Kittle. He's not better than Kelce. Like, he's not better than Darren Waller. Like, there's just no reason for him to need to reset the market. And if that's where he's shooting for, then I'll see you next spring and we'll franchise tag you. Like that's kind of what it is. Like, if he wants to play hardball, the tight end position isn't the type of position to play hardball because of where their market is. Like, kind of, it's not obviously as bad as running back, but like they're not going to give that man 18 million a year. That's just not happening, right? So I'm not too worried about it, but I think it would be nice to kind of get something wrapped up if they're close.
Love it. All right, we got some questions. Let's get these questions. So Freddie, I feel like we've done a version of this on like a few shows, so we're gonna go rapid fire here. Myles over under 8.5.
Guys, I'm gonna say over because I think 9 is like right at that sweet spot.
All right, Ryan.
I'm right there. I was thinking 9 is where I was at. So,
all right, Flip.
We're all going over.
All right, over.
Flip's like 14, man.
Oh, well, wow. And Dan says, all y'all are wrong. TJ deserves 15. He's our second best target. So I'm just going to throw a question in there right now. Moving forward, I know he was last year because, we had, old Adam Thielen out there on the field. But as we move forward, is TJ, in fact, our second best target as we project what this offense will be into this year and moving forward? Because if we're re-signing him for the long term, it's not just about this year, it's about the future. So is what Dan's saying right?
Yes, for now.
I mean, that feels like hedging. It feels like hedging.
No, I
feels
mean,
like hedging.
It's just poor logic. If we, at this exact same time 12 months ago, Adam Thielen was our second best target.
Yeah.
And nobody was talking about signing him to a 4-year deal. And
he wasn't 26, Flip.
TJ Hockenson is not our second best target, and he's not going to be by the end of this year.
I'm saying right now, he is the second best target on the team.
But you're not paying him 15 for right now. You're paying him 15 for
if you pay him 15, you're saying that you think he's going to be our second best target for the next 3-4 years.
I think there's no reason to say that him and Addison can't be like that one, like basically competing for that second spot. There's no reason they both can't.
And he still shouldn't get 15 because Travis Kelce is not the second best target on his team. He's the first. He's the number one target.
Of course
George
he is.
Kittle is the number one target.
Kelsey's deal is like 40 years old, though.
But I will say, like, no one would disagree if Travis Kelce got like a $25 million a year contract. Nobody would sit here and be like, oh, he doesn't deserve it. There's no one's giving tight ends that money. Like, that's just that's just where we're at. So I'm not saying like Hockenson should, like, I think he should get a contract extension because I think he's good enough, and I think the projection forward is good enough. I also think Jordan Addison has really high upside, but I also think Hockenson showed in a limited sample size that he can be a really good player in this offense. And if that is the second target, I got no issues with it because I think what they've done around him and Jefferson is really good. I think Addison and KJ Osborne, that's a really good like foundation of a receiving group. And so how we decide who's the 2, the 3, the 4, like honestly couldn't care less as long as they're all contributing and having an impact. Like it really shouldn't matter as long as those guys are all like playing well.
And Kirk Cousins loves his like safety nets, right? And you don't get much better of a safety net than a TJ Hockenson type guy.
His drops, as long as he can control the drops, but I'm good with that overall. Yeah.
All right. So Ryan said the name, so I'm going to go to him for this next one from Twitter. It's a good one. So Ryan, what's it going to take for Kirk Cousins to be MVP of the NFL? What kind of performance will we need to see from Kirk Cousins for him to be getting real, legitimate MVP consideration? And so this came from Twitter. They say 40 plus TDs, 10 less interceptions, 4,000 plus yards. Like, what combination of those things brings you to a place where you could say Kirk Cousins MVP and not be saying it with the smile that you have currently on your face?
Oh man, Patrick Mahomes getting hurt, Josh Allen probably getting hurt, Joe Burrow getting hurt, maybe Jalen Hurts getting hurt. Hell, maybe CMC getting hurt. I'm not quite sure. Justin Jefferson like getting hurt, so all those yards are going to TJ Hockenson. No, I don't know. I mean, you basically got to win a bunch of games. Like you got to be, kind of put out a similar record as we did last year, get a number 1 seed, right? And probably something around those numbers, 40 to 50 TDs. You probably got to be hedging closer to 5,000 yards and like 10 or less interceptions because Mahomes is going to do that. Mahomes is going to do that. He's probably going to get close. And he may not get all. Going to add a lot of rushing yards and rushing TDs. Same with Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, you got to be able to, but like at the end of the day, you got to put the reason why he wasn't taken seriously, I feel like last year was because we were barely winning these games. Like we were relying on a Greg Joseph kick. We were
and JJ kind of took the limelight too.
Well, and that too, right? I mean, and you're going to need JJ to be able to probably to be able to do that if Kirk Cousins is going to put up these type of numbers. So it's going to be really hard for him to ever, I think, overcome that hill, so to speak, just because, you have JJ here stealing quite a bit of that. I mean, he's the personality, right? Kirk Cousins is not the personality. And then you got some absolute superstars at quarterback in the AFC there that are likely going to just demand that attention as well. So he needs to get a number 1 seed, and he also needs to like play near flawless. It can't all be JJ. It's got to be a lot of AJ, a lot of Jordan Addison as well.
Okay. All right. We're going to talk about the Titans game real quick. Just real quick. Because we're coming up on time here for the show. Myles, now that more and more teams are doing these joint practices, which seems like a lot of what we would typically get in preseason is being shifted into these joint practices where a lot of the starters and like the up and coming rookies are getting a lot of their reps in these places and not necessarily in the games. Like, what are the things that you're hoping, I guess, to hear coming out of these joint practices? Like, what are the most important matchups for the Vikings kind of at a macro level? And then, like, are there any specific players that you're really looking to see how they match up against the Titans when these practices get going?
Yeah, I'm just like, I honestly mean this. I know it's going to kind of come off as a joke, but I'm honestly hoping that the offensive line isn't just like getting destroyed. The interior offensive line, Jeffrey Simmons and Tahir Tart. I don't know if I'm saying that, if his first name right, but he was really good as their nose tackle last year. And I think that interior as a group for the Titans is really strong. And it just worries me, like in one-on-one, not just one-on-ones, but like in the team settings, our O-line might just get pushed back. And I'm hoping those guys kind of hold their own a little bit more and win some of those battles. And so I'm obviously not worried about the tackles. They haven't been an issue for this team for a while, but that interior I just worry about. So I just hope we can kind of see them win some matchups. And then lastly, like the other part would be the cornerback group. I just want to see how they handle, because that Titans team, I know they brought in Nuke, and I know they got Traylon Burks, they got Chigo Konkwu, who was a pretty good rookie last year. So I just kind of want to see like how they handle some of those players, because they're more big physical type receivers than they are like the speed. And so just kind of curious how guys like Mekhi Blackman, Byron Murphy, and then obviously Caleb Evans, who's the bigger guy in the group, and him and Joanne Williams. But and then Andrew Booth, like, can those guys kind of step up and kind of show themselves against those guys and their receivers? So just curious to see how they handle themselves and progress through camp, just because that's such a hot button issue for this team, is like the trenches and then the cornerback group are like the areas like of most concern for me.
Ryan, same question.
Yeah, I mean, Myles kind of hit it on the head. My number one thing was the cornerbacks. I want to see how they handle the bigger physical receivers. Actually, over the next 2 weeks, that's going to be kind of something I really want to keep an eye on. This week, they're going to see one type of receiver, which are the bigger physical guys. And then the next week, they're going to see a lot of speed in Marquise Brown and Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch and those guys for the Cardinals, right? So it's just going to be interesting to see how they can match up against the different styles over the next 2 weeks. Another call out too is our interior defensive line. I want to kind of see how really the whole defensive line. So D-line and then the two outside linebackers, just to kind of see how this new system, are they able to generate better pressures? Obviously, we're using a lot more multi-looks and a lot more pressure coming from safeties and linebackers and slot corners. But I want to see kind of how they stack up, because it's not like the Titans offensive line is like otherworldly. They used to be great, but they've kind of fallen off quite a bit, just given injuries and age and all that. So I just want to see, are they able to kind of create a little pressure against Tannehill? And again, it sounds like Willis is playing much better this year. And so, we're going to have the speed element of the movable quarterback that they have to kind of navigate as well. So those are the two kind of things I'm looking at.
All right, Flip.
Yeah, I think the words are one thing. We're going to hear reports about how everybody's looking. I think really what it comes down to is, do the Vikings take action on some of these depth spots that they've been interviewing for over the past couple of weeks? So I think, if they are going to sign a Dalton Reisner or, a running back option, it probably happens on the other side of the Titans joint practice. Probably wouldn't make sense to bring them in the middle of that joint practice. So let's see if they just don't like, like Myles said, they don't like how the interior line's performing, or if they don't feel comfortable about spot, do they make a roster move to support that?
Word. Well, all right. We made it all the way through. We found out that Flip has more beef for TJ Hockenson than I ever had for Kyle Rudolph, which is not what I was expecting to happen on this here show. But, you never know what's going to happen. So that is it. That is all. We've made it.
I was going to say real quick, do we have any thoughts on the Vikings like running back situation? Obviously, they brought in a couple guys as like to work out and talk to. Do we care? Jason, I know you don't care, but
I mean, I love me some Mike Davis. He won me some money in fantasy football in the past, but like, they're bringing in names that like feel nice to me because of fantasy, but I don't know if these guys can play anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I just thought it was interesting because of kind of what Kevin O'Connell said about Ty Chandler the other day, just about like they like Ty Chandler, but he's obviously still young and a guy that maybe doesn't know all the plays and his and recognizing defenses so that he can help in pass pro and those types of things. So just something I forgot to bring up earlier in the show. But
yeah, if they bring Mike Davis, I'll be happy.
Wongu's hurt, and
yeah.
And McBride ain't gonna make the team. Like,
bro,
Man,
how
he didn't look great, man.
No, how quickly that like turned though, because everybody was touting that dude like he was the next coming. And I'm not saying like that's not fair to him. He's a 7th round pick for a reason, but like people were talking about him like he was a steal of the draft. And I'm not saying he can't still be a good player, but man,
I was one of them too. I loved his UAB, but
I was not.
I didn't watch enough of him.
He looked big and slow. He looked like Latavius Murray plus 50 pounds.
Hey, I was about to say Murray been out here just steady, man. He just been steady.
Bring him back.
Okay. Well, when we hit the point of the show where we're trying to bring back Latavius Murray, we got to go ahead and call it a night. As always, if you're watching with us live, thank you so much. If you're listening later on, make sure you like, subscribe, do all those things. Tell a friend to watch. We appreciate it, and we appreciate all of y'all.